and welcome to the last week of Writing from Your Gut. I want to apologize for never having figured out how to get the glare off my glasses. I'm sure there's some great trick to this. I tried doing it without my glasses, but then I can't read my notes, and then I stumble a lot. So hopefully I will stumble less, and again, I apologize for the glare. So this week we're going to do 3 different ways of working with revision. The first is something that you can take with you and do anytime, which is some 3 independent revision exercises. They're things that I always do, and I hope you find them useful. So the first one is that after I think I've got an essay pretty much where I want it, I cut the first and last paragraphs and see what happens. The first paragraph is very often a kind of authorial throat clearing, a sort of getting ready to tell me what you're going to tell me. And readers don't want that, right? We want to jump right in. And the last one is often I'm going to wrap it up. I'm not going to trust you to get what I wanted you to get from this essay. And again, readers want you to trust them. They want you to think they're smart, and they are smart, right? Let's face it, we're writing creative nonfiction. We're writing for a demographic that reads a lot and are good readers, so we can usually trust them. And so see what happens. Play with that. If you lose a key fact, see if you can work it in somewhere else. If it really doesn't work, then maybe congratulations, you haven't done the authorial throat clearing, you haven't wrapped it up too neatly for us. But if it works, if you can still make it make sense and be cohesive without one or the other or both of those paragraphs, I strongly encourage you to give that a try. The second is to read the piece aloud, either to yourself or to have somebody else read it to you. So, and I don't put this option down because it's a little bit of a hassle, but this is the one I use. My husband does not like to read my work in progress out loud to me, and I don't blame him because I can get pretty cringy. And I am somebody who reads work in a really loving, generous way, right? So when I read anybody's work out loud, I sort of add to it any texture or anything I want on the page, and I can make crap sound good, particularly my own crap. And so I can't trust myself to read it out loud and hear the awkwardness. So I use a computer voice simulator that reads my Word file to me, and that's something that's in Word, and if you know how to use it, that can also be a great tool. But it can be complicated, so I'm not going to walk through setup. If you don't, read it to yourself, but try to make yourself read it in a way that's less friendly to the text than you might usually read. Or get somebody else to read it and ask them also to read it plainly, right? To not embellish the text with the texture of their voice. And this is because we pick up on linguistic awkwardness a lot better with our ears than we do with our eyes. And what you're listening for here is any place where the phrasing just seems off, where your reader, particularly if it's another person, but often even if it's you, trips up trying to parse the phrasing, where you start to hear a word a few too many times, and you know you've maybe used that word a little bit too much in your essay. All of those things that the ear picks up better than the eye. Finally, I want you to go through the essay and look at every place where you have exposition to see if you could move it into scene. We're working with narrative nonfiction here, and so narrative is what drives this. Exposition can feel flat. It's very much keeps the reader aware of the fact that the experience is mediated by the authorial voice. And there isn't anything wrong with that, particularly for intellectual or thinky pieces. But again, in narrative nonfiction, what we're usually going for is both an intellectual take, right? We're enacting thinking on the page, but also an emotional take on the events. And you're going to get a stronger emotional reaction with scene than with exposition. Sometimes that's really easy. Sometimes changing verb tense does it. In this piece that I had, one of the changes I had to make was I had the phrase, my mother would stand over the stove. Well, that's exposition. But if I make it, my mother stands over the stove or stood over the stove, then we're in scene. So it's not as hard as it sounds, but it's a really important change to make. Also, look at places where you maybe can add description. Make sure that we're engaging with all 5 senses when you're putting things in scene. That's a really key part of engaging us, and engaging our autonomic nervous system helps us to engage emotionally with the material. The second way is through support of each other, right? We all run into stuff when we're revising. I love revising. It's my favorite part of the writing process, and yet it's still hard for me. And so there's a support bulletin board. I promise I'll check it twice a day. I encourage you guys to check it when you have a chance so that we can say, oh my gosh, I'm stuck on this, or I don't know what this means, or what is Sarah talking about, or really, why didn't she do something with her hair before she made this video? Whatever it is that you want to say. And we'll come in and offer you support for that and give you our suggestions, although of course ultimately this is your work and you should take all of our suggestions and see what's useful to you and what's not, and only go with what's useful. The final is that I've made a small change. We're going to do our Skype conferences based on your revised essay, based on the essay that you have turned in that you are revising now. And I'm going to give you my feedback. If you have revisions that you want to send to me through email before our Skype conference, that's absolutely fine. But it occurred to me that the most useful way for me to do this is actually to give you 2 sets of feedback instead of 2, give you the line notes and do the Skype conference at the same time. So this weekend we'll do our Skype conferences. And if you look, you'll see that there's a Google Doc that you can just type your name beside a time that you want to do. And then after that, you'll still have a few more days to put a final polish on your essay. You will send that to me. And that's the essay that I will give you any line notes I have, recommendations for where to publish, if you're still drafting. And I would still be drafting at this point. If you're still drafting, then I might give you some directional comments, whatever it is that the piece needs and whatever you feel like you want. And so we will go from Skype conference to final revision, and about a week after that you will get all of my final comments, which should be a couple pages of notes. All right, I hope this has been useful to you. I'm really looking forward to seeing your essays, and have a great week, guys. It's almost the holiday season. Bye-bye.